All right, gang. Well, hopefully you all were successful in completing your quiz on how well you all know Mount Vernon. Again, you don't have to reveal your answers. That's fine. And we will take a look as we make our way through and see how well you know together. But I wanted to take this time now to sort of jump into our first segment, which is the segment that deals with the marriage of George Washington and Martha, right? So let me go ahead, Martha Dandridge Custis. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you. And then we will take a look at this. Let me open that up for you. All right. So here we can see current slide. All right, there we go. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this, right? So we talked a little bit in week one about the sort of formula or pattern that existed amongst Washington men for generations, right? And that formula consists of the fact that these Washington men would oftentimes marry above their status, right? Which in the social circles of the 18th century was extremely important way for you to rise in your social stratosphere, right? Marry above yourself. They oftentimes would hold public office. And then of course they would also die young, right? And that's sort of the trend that George escapes, but he does fit the mold for the other areas too, right? Martha Dandridge Custis was born a year before George in 1731, June of less than a year, I guess, 1731. And she's born in New Kent County, Virginia, right? The oldest of 8 children. Her father, John Dandridge, like the Washington men, was involved in public office, a clerk of New Kent County, involved in the church as a vestry. And her mother, Frances Jones, her father was a member of the Virginia House of Burgesses, right? The Virginia House of Burgesses is the earliest form of representative a republic that we see, right? This idea of representative democracy, if you will, right? We see in this idea of the House of Burgesses. And so Martha Dandridge Custis's father is part of that. On her mother's side, okay? Martha Dandridge marries Daniel Parke Custis, who has the unfortunate legacy of being painted as if he was a human pear. He kind of looks like he would be a perfect fit in the Fruit of Loom commercials as the pear, with the way his body is shaped in this painting. But anyway, Daniel Parke Custis was an extremely wealthy individual. A Virginia planter with over 20 years older than Martha, right? Which would then set this up more so as a marriage of convenience, putting 2 wealthy individuals together, which is not out of the norm during this time period as well. They have 4 children together. Only 2 of them lived to beyond early childhood, and that's Jackie, John Parke Custis. Jackie will sort of be the problem child. Jackie and Patsy are the 2 that come with Martha to Mount Vernon, and Washington sort of becomes the surrogate stepfather. Patsy will struggle with medical issues that would cause her to have these violent seizures, sometimes dozens a day, and it'll eventually take her life in 1773. Jackie will die after contracting, I believe it was either smallpox or yellow fever at the Battle of Yorktown. And Jackie was sort of the problem child in that they sent him away for a formal education to Princeton, and he kind of got kicked out of school, and they tried private tutors, and he just seemed to be the wayward son, that the black sheep, if you will, and didn't necessarily get involved in the cause of the American Revolution until the end. And when he did finally get involved, he tragically contracts this disease and dies, right? But it'll be Jackie's offspring through his marriage that will follow the Washingtons to Philadelphia, and they'll be there with them. Nellie Parke Custis is one of them that will go in there as well. So 2 children live to, I guess, somewhat of adulthood from this marriage, right? Um, he dies. Daniel Parke Custis dies in 1757, right? And now, all of a sudden, as a result of this death, um, Martha Dandridge Custis becomes sort of the most eligible bachelorette, if you will, or the most eligible widow, if you will, because of not only the amount of her estate, but also the slaves that will come with that as well, right? And this will really account for most of Washington's wealth. Washington doesn't sort of become part of that social elite until after his marriage to Martha Dandridge Custis. And we saw a little bit of this in that introductory video. They do a good job of sort of recreating the first meeting. Washington is a member of the Virginia militia. I believe he's on his way back from Williamsburg, or on his way to Williamsburg. It's the spring of 1758. They're in their mid-20s at this point. And Washington is sort of persuaded to stop at the Chamberlains where Martha is, and he intended it to be a short stay, but he winds up staying longer than that. He's there with William Lee, his body servant. He leaves the next day. They have this 10-month courtship, and then they're married in January of 1759, I believe. Yes, right. And then she comes to Mount Vernon. And now Washington has immediately moved up the social ladder, if you will, by virtue of this. And there is much that is made of, to the extent of their love for each other. You know, they both weren't of the kind to write these sort of long, flowery love letters towards each other. There wasn't necessarily an open declaration of their love for each other that we see in some other relationships, right? John and Abigail Adams comes to mind there. But so a lot, I think, has been made of their, was it a marriage of convenience? Did they really love each other, right? They didn't have any children together. And so there is also a question of Washington's possible sterility. Maybe it was through the smallpox that he contracted that aided to that. So maybe that's why there's no male offspring of Washington or a child at all. But inconclusive, never could be proven, right? But they did have this love of horses and dogs. There will constantly be dogs at Mount Vernon. So there was commonality, and I from everything that I've read and seen, I do believe that there was a definite love for each other. They just weren't the individuals to sort of openly share it, right? For posterity to pinpoint. But I definitely think that it was there. So it's this marriage and this partnership that will extend for the rest of George's life. She will be at his side on several occasions for lengthy stays during his time as commanding general of the Continental Army. She will be begrudgingly at his side as the first lady when he becomes president for 2 terms of office. It's a position that she did not covet or want at this point. In 1783, or even later after that, when the Constitution creates the position of the first presidency, 1789, he is inaugurated. She is like, listen, we've done our bit, you know, let's just retire quietly to Mount Vernon. And I think Washington would have just as easily enjoyed that as well. But that was that sense of duty, civic virtue that Washington showed that constantly kept him coming back, if you will, for more. And so this relationship begins, and it obviously is a central tenet of understanding who Washington was by understanding the importance of this marriage and the importance of this partnership. So, all right, what I have for you now is it's a quick little 2-minute clip, which there's a reenactor that is at Mount Vernon of Martha Washington, and it's her retelling of the wedding day on January of 1759. So if you want to go ahead and take a watch of that, and then we'll come back after that and discuss a little bit more about the actual building and outbuildings of Mount Vernon. So go ahead, and I will turn this off.